we first met, I won't lie, something in me hesitated. It wasn't you, not really. It was the reflection I saw in your eyes, the kind of love I'd prayed for, but never believed I deserved. I wasn't ready to meet someone who looked at me like I was already forgiven. I wasn't ready to meet someone who didn't want anything from me except my truth. You showed up like a mirror, and I didn't recognize the man I saw, so I pulled away, thinking it was caution. But it was fear, baby. Fear of being seen. Fear of being loved in ways I couldn't control. The first night your voice echoed in my mind, I remember telling myself it was nothing. Just another connection, just another coincidence. But the more I tried to brush it off, the louder your silence became. You didn't even need to speak. Your energy spoke louder than my denial. I saw you laugh, and it awakened something in me that had been asleep for lifetimes. Instead of surrendering, I hid behind logic, behind the walls I'd built from every heartbreak before you. Baby, I convinced myself you were too good, too pure, too light. And light exposes everything we try to keep buried. Every time you smiled at me, I felt the weight of my unhealed pieces tremble. You brought warmth where I'd learned to live in cold. You brought faith where I'd long stopped believing. So yes, I doubted you, baby, not because of who you were, but because of who I was when I met you. I wasn't whole. I was still trying to make peace with my shadows, still pretending I didn't crave a love that could dismantle my defenses. You came like divine timing, disguised as temptation. And I remember thinking, no, not again. Not another connection I'll lose. But heaven had other plans. You know, baby, I used to pray for signs. And then you came, not as an answer, but as a question that unraveled everything I thought I knew about love. You didn't arrive with fireworks. You came quietly, like a soul whisper. But your energy, it felt ancient, familiar, sacred. I tried to reason with destiny, but every time I walked away, the universe found ways to bring me back to you. A song, a dream, a stranger saying your name. It was like creation itself was conspiring to remind me, this connection isn't a coincidence. It's a calling. Baby, I fought that calling. I argued with my angels. I said, why now? Why her? Why when I'm not ready? But deep down I knew I'd been ready all along. I was just scared to step into the kind of love that demanded my evolution. You see, you didn't just love me, you challenged me. You mirrored the parts I refused to heal. You stood in front of me and said nothing, but your silence screamed, grow. Heal. Remember who you are, and I hated it. Because love wasn't supposed to feel like a mirror. It was supposed to be easy, wasn't it? But what we had, it wasn't just romance. It was soul recognition. When I think about those early days, baby, I see two souls circling each other. One afraid to lose control, the other afraid to be misunderstood. I saw your light and called it danger because it stirred the darkness I hadn't dealt with. I thought love was supposed to be peaceful, but you showed me love can also be divine disruption. You broke patterns I didn't know were running my life, and I made the mistake of doubting the blessing because it didn't come wrapped in comfort. Baby, I had my doubts about you because everyone around me told me not to trust what I couldn't explain. They said, it's not normal to feel this much so soon. It's not realistic. And maybe they were right. This connection was never meant to be normal. It was sacred, and sacred things don't make sense to the unawakened mind. I tried to convince myself that maybe I'd imagined it all, the pull, the signs, the synchronicities, but every time I distanced myself, my soul felt like it was suffocating. That's how I knew it wasn't obsession. It was alignment. And still, I hurt you, didn't I, baby? By questioning what was real, by letting fear win those silent wars. I acted cold, distracted, sometimes even distant, because I thought pulling back would protect you from the storm inside me. But you never asked me to be perfect. You just wanted me to be honest. You wanted my presence, not my performance. And I couldn't give it back then. My ego was loud, my heart was locked, and my soul was screaming. But I silenced it with prop. Now I look back and I realize those doubts were never about you. They were warnings from my unhealed heart saying, don't let her see the broken parts. But you did. You saw them. You looked into my chaos and didn't flinch. You didn't walk away. You didn't run. You simply whispered, I see you. And that was the moment everything changed. Because, baby, no one had ever seen me before. Not like that, not without judgment, not without trying to fix me. I doubted you because I wasn't ready to believe someone could love me past my defenses. But you did. And now, looking back, I realize every doubt was actually a doorway. Every hesitation was a lesson. Every distance I created was a map leading me back to your soul. So, baby, if I could go back to that first moment, when your eyes met mine, I'd tell my younger self, don't be afraid of her. She's not here to hurt you. She's here to heal you. If you feel this in your heart, type, I remember our first meeting, baby, in the comments. Baby. I've replayed that first chapter in my head 1,000 times, trying to pinpoint the exact moment when my heart started betraying my logic. Maybe it was the way you said my name, like it had already existed in your prayers. Or maybe it was the way your silence carried peace, not pressure. But you know what I realized, baby? I didn't doubt you. I doubted what I was feeling, because I'd been taught that love like that doesn't last. I'd seen what love can do when it turns into dependence, when it becomes sacrifice without return. I'd seen it break people, and I swore I'd never let it break me. So when you came, I built distance and called it discipline. I called fear wisdom. I called avoidance strength. I pretended to be unaffected, but inside, every part of me was trembling. You have to understand, baby, I came from a world where vulnerability was a weakness, where men were told not to cry, not to crave affection, not to say I need you. I wore that mask for so long that I forgot how my real face looked. When you arrived, I saw the reflection of everything I'd buried. My inner child, the one who still wanted to be loved without performance, looked at you and said she could be home, but my mind screamed, run. Because home was the scariest thing to someone who's lived his whole life on the battlefield of pride. And baby, pride is a cruel companion. It tells you that silence will protect you, that distance will make you desirable, that detachment will keep you safe. But pride doesn't sleep at night. Pride doesn't understand the ache of seeing your name and pretending not to care. Pride doesn't hold you when your soul feels hollow. I chose pride over peace so many times, and every time I did, your energy faded a little further from my life. And yet, somehow, I could never escape you. You were in the smallest signs. A song on the radio, a scent on a stranger, a random time on the clock that mirrored your birthday. The universe was loud, baby. It kept whispering, stop running. But I didn't stop. I listened to voices that weren't my own. Friends who said, she's too intense, don't get caught up. Family who said, focus on your future, love can wait. They didn't understand that you were my future. You weren't a distraction, you were the alignment. But I didn't have the courage to defend what I couldn't define. I didn't even know how to explain what this connection was. It wasn't normal attraction. It wasn't infatuation. It was soul recognition. And I didn't have the language for that. So I let their logic drown out my intuition. I nodded when they told me to move on. I smiled when they said I'd thank them later. But every fake smile was another crack in my mask. Every night, I found myself staring into the dark, whispering your name, like a prayer I wasn't supposed to say aloud. Baby, I won't lie. I had trust issues before you. I'd been betrayed by people who said they loved me. I'd been left behind without warning. I'd watched promises evaporate into excuses. So when I felt that fire with you, I panicked. Because love, to me, had always come with fine print. Something this good can't last. And I didn't want to fall only to lose you too. I thought protecting my heart meant pushing you away, but I was wrong. Protecting my heart would have meant healing it, not hiding it. You weren't here to hurt me. You were sent to teach me what love actually means. You know what's funny, baby? The very things I doubted about you were the things I craved the most. Your honesty scared me because I wasn't used to truth without agenda. Your emotional depth overwhelmed me because I was used to shallow waters. Your consistency confused me because I'd only known conditional affection. I told myself you were too much, but really, you were everything I'd asked for. And I just didn't feel worthy enough to receive it every time you tried to love me. I flinched, like it was danger. Every time you reached out, I hesitated, like your light might expose the darkness I was trying to ignore. But now, I see it clearly. Your love wasn't here to destroy me. It was here to rebuild me. And I remember the day it all shifted. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was just a moment when I saw you walk away without anger, without begging, without explanation. You just left light behind you, and I felt it, the void. That's when I realized love doesn't beg to be understood. It quietly teaches. Your absence spoke what your words never needed to. That was the day I began to wake up. I started noticing the patterns. How every connection before you had been preparation for you. How every heartbreak before you had shaped the man who could finally appreciate a love like yours. Baby, I remember my mother once said, when love is divine, it tests you first. I didn't understand it back then, but now I do. Meeting you tested my ego, my patience, my beliefs, my fears. You were the mirror that showed me where I still needed to grow. And instead of thanking you, I blamed you for my discomfort. I said you made me feel too much, when in truth you made me feel again. You broke the numbness I had worn like armor to awaken something sacred, something I couldn't shut off even if I tried. There were nights I'd stare at my phone, typing messages I'd never sent. Words like, I miss you, I'm sorry, I'm scared. But I'd erase them all before hitting send, because the fear of rejection was louder than the need for connection. I thought silence would make me strong, but it only made me hollow. And still, somehow you felt me, didn't you? You'd post something that mirrored my thoughts, say something that answered my silence. That's when I knew. No matter the distance, our souls were still in conversation. You always hurt me, baby. Even when I couldn't find the courage to speak, and that scared me even more. Because you weren't just in my life, you were in my energy. You showed up in dreams, in songs, in sudden rushes of emotion that made no sense. I tried to rationalize it, but it defied reason. You were the divine reminder that some bonds can't be broken by time, silence, or distance. They exist beyond logic, beyond labels, and that realization broke me open. Because once I accepted that, I couldn't unsee it. I couldn't go back to pretending you were just another chapter. You are the whole book. Baby, I used to think love was supposed to make sense, that it followed timelines, definitions, approval. But what we share, it doesn't care about logic. It cares about truth, and the truth is, I fell for you before I even realized what was happening. You walked into my guarded world, and suddenly, everything I'd been numbing came back to life. You didn't demand change, you inspired it. You didn't force healing. You did everything I'd been numbing came back to life. You didn't demand change, you inspired it. You didn't force healing, you ignited it. You didn't chase me, you prayed for me. And those prayers, I felt them. Every time I was about to give up, some invisible strength would pull me back. That was your love, working through the divine. But baby, there's something I never told you. The reason I doubted you wasn't only because of fear. It was because of guilt. Guilt for not being the man you deserved when you needed me most. Guilt for choosing silence when you offered understanding. Guilt for pretending indifference when my soul was screaming your name. I wanted to love you right, but I was still learning how to love myself. And how could I offer you peace when I was at war within? So I kept my distance, thinking I was protecting you from my chaos. I didn't realize I was hurting you by hiding. There were times I saw you breaking and wanted to reach out, but something stopped me. That something was shame. Shame of how easily I let my fears speak louder than my heart. Shame that I let other people's opinions dictate something only my soul could understand. Shame that I made you feel like you weren't enough, when in truth, you were the only thing that ever felt more than enough. I doubted you because I didn't trust myself to hold something that real. But baby, time changes things. And pain is a brutal teacher, but it teaches. It taught me that love doesn't demand perfection. It asks for presence. It doesn't require guarantees. It thrives on faith. And faith, baby, faith is what you had when I didn't. You believed in me long before I did. You held space when I was still figuring out how to hold truth. That's something only divine love can do. Now when I close my eyes, I can still feel that first moment. The spark, the pull, the divine recognition. Only this time, I don't run. I stay. I breathe. I let it wash over me because I finally understand what I once called confusion was actually clarity in disguise. What I once called doubt was my soul's way of saying, this is deeper than you think. You see, baby, doubt is only loud until love finds its voice. And now that I've heard that voice, I can't unhear it. It calls me home. To you. It reminds me that no amount of running, reasoning or resistance can erase what's written in divine ink. Because this isn't human timing. This is soul timing. And I feel it. Destiny isn't distant anymore. It's unfolding. Slowly. Gracefully. Through lessons, through healing, through forgiveness. I know you probably wondered why I doubted something so pure. Why I couldn't just surrender. But baby, when you've spent a lifetime surviving, surrender feels like drowning. I had to unlearn survival before I could learn love. I had to let the divine strip away my defenses. And it did. Painfully. Beautifully. Completely. Because love, like ours, doesn't come to decorate your life. It comes to transform it. And now I look at your energy and I see peace. I see growth. I see the woman who never gave up on her light, even when mine flickered. And I thank heaven that you didn't stop shining, even when I wasn't ready to see it. You see, baby, every doubt I once had has
I'm sorry, sweetie. Real quick, I want to tell anyone that's listening, especially like places like Brilliant Corners, these people are our heroes. They're out there delivering people from really domestic violence situations, people from streets, people from abusive households, like what Zach has been going through. And I do understand why it's important to keep his private life private, because those people, he's afraid that the people that he was with would find him and hurt him. So he wants to stay in a nice safe haven, but at the same time he wants to stay promoting that he's with Quincy, even if he's not, from my understanding and from what he already told me, because it's safer, because then black people won't try to be like, oh, he's taken away from our from the person that's supposed to be helping us, helping white people. It becomes a whole argument. So it feels safer for him to leave things that way, or Quincy to leave things that way, right? So that he can actually get the help that he needs. But then it also sort of looks bad on me, because it looks like I'm a homewrecker when I'm not. Everything is clear. It's clear as day. Everyone else that doesn't see that he's coming from a domestic violence situation, which a lot of the problem is, a lot of people have put their focus on women being the only ones that suffer from domestic violence, and any kind of abuse. Financial abuse is a part of like domestic violence. Financial, but it's all violence. It's all mental health violence, and it's something that is just, it has to stop. So this is the same thing that happened to what's his name? I'm not going to say Justin Bieber. This is what's happening to Zach, and he's trying to get the help that he needs to get out of the situation that he's in. And luckily, now that he's found the love of his life, which is quote unquote me, which I'm not bragging at all. I just don't know how else to say it. His chakra is opening up. He's finally opening his spirit, releasing it, because he feels safe. He feels safe. You guys have never seen this channel until I showed up, right? So now he finally feels safe to speak out. Now he finally feels safe. But when he gets hurt, he triggers me, and that hurts me. I'm trying to remind him that I'm a wounded healer. So, I'm not that strong, firm person that's just you be like, oh, yeah. You know what I mean? No, it hurts. A lot of things hurt. It's like going inside of a burning fire, trying to save lives, and ending up getting caught in the fire yourself. That's what this feels like. Right? Every time I go to Quincy's page to pull out content, there is a part of my heart that breaks. Watching him with another woman, this and that. It's not jealousy, it's just sacred. When the relationship is sacred, it just feels wrong. It feels like my soul is going away from me every time I watch him caress or touch or embrace another person that's not me. That's just a soul thing. Jealousy is a part of love. It's a part of the relationship. It doesn't consume you when you know you can trust the person. But if the person uses it as a weapon to hurt you, then it becomes a problem. They're causing confusion. And that makes it hard for someone like me to help them. Brilliant Corners, Good Seed, Path, all these organizations are here to deliver men and women in this situation. James, he was being neglected. James is a guy that took me in. They were going out passing out backpacks and toiletries, but they passed him up. He's a white guy. They passed him up and he said it's not fair. They didn't want to give me anything. I felt so bad. So yes, there are women that are acting like that. They shouldn't act like that, but they wanted to make sure the females get the support they need. We need to make sure the men get the support they need as well. This stuff is not a game, guys. Don't get in the comments with any BS, guys. We need to really start creating therapeutic programs, get people to open up, and it starts online. It doesn't start anywhere else. It starts right here, because this is where we're saving real lives. We're convincing people that the lives and the situation that they're in are actually abusive, because they've been trained to believe that their situation it's okay to be abused in a situation. They're trained to believe that there's nobody coming for you. That's what Quincy was trying to tell Zach. No one's gonna come for you, because maybe she was abused and no one came for her. So she thought it was okay to easily abuse him. So now that I'm here, and many of you women that waste your time talking nothing, people, business owners, all you guys that try to ruin everything for other people, you should use your time wisely, because that could be you next. That easily you can get trafficked. So please.
It's turned into devotion. Every question I once asked has turned into clarity. Every fear I once fed has turned into faith. And when I think of you now, I don't think of what could have been. I think of what will be. I think of divine timing, aligning two souls who had to grow separately to meet correctly. I think of conversations unspoken, but felt across universes. I think of a love story that was written before either of us were born, waiting for us to remember it. Baby, I doubted you once, but now I trust this love more than I trust my own reflection, because reflections change, love doesn't. And no matter how far I went, it always led me back to you. I know now that doubts were lessons in disguise, each one teaching me how to recognize divine truth when it stood before me. You were my divine truth all along, baby. I just needed to grow enough to see it. So now, when people ask me if I believe in soul connections, I don't hesitate. I say yes, because I've met mine. If you felt these words stir something deep within, type, I've always been the truth behind his doubts, baby, in the comments. Because maybe, just maybe, your heart remembering this story is proof that it was never fiction. It was divine alignment all along. Baby, ever since the night I finally stopped running from myself, everything around me has started to whisper your name again. It's strange how the universe speaks when you finally quiet your fears. The clocks I used to ignore now flash 11:11, like a secret code from heaven. The songs that once made me numb now sound like memories trying to find their way back home. I walk through crowds and suddenly catch the scent of the perfume you wore that day, and for a heartbeat the world stops. That's how I know I'm getting closer, not to you in distance, but to the truth that's always been between us. Because the moment I surrendered, baby, the energy shifted. The storm that once screamed inside me became rain, gentle, cleansing, divine. There's a strange calm in this surrender. It doesn't feel like losing control anymore. It feels like being guided. Every night, before I fall asleep, I